Alright everybody, welcome back to the Let's Play of Ocarina of Time. A Let's Play of sorts, and mostly it's a script discussion, I guess. In this video, you may notice, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with your computer, that when I get into the dungeon, the gameplay footage speeds up quite a strange amount. And I did that on purpose, because I didn't want this to last as long as it, it might. And I screw up, quite a bit, so yeah. Yeah, apart from that... also, I knew that I wasn't going to have as much to talk about for this, the Goron thing, because this was one of the parts of the script that I hadn't written dialogue for yet. I just had like an outline, to hold space, and then I went on and wrote other parts. Sometimes you do that with a screenplay. You don't write from beginning to end. You write whatever, strikes you at the moment after you have your outline done. So yeah, this part was never written as far as dialogue goes, but I can describe what I did with this part of the story. Also, if you hear any weird background noises during this, my roommate is still watching Death Note in the other room, and Death Note being Death Note is quite loud. So yeah, if you hear any weird Latin choirs, that's why. Or people screaming, or I don't know, something. Okay. So, ouch. Okay, so... this whole part, I think I left off describing how he gets to the mountain last time, which is, via Kabora Gabora, via the talons of the owl. And, so he gets dropped off at the top of Death Mountain, and, has to find the Gorons. And I didn't really want to imply what the Gorons look like, because, after Impa tells him, you're gonna go see the Gorons or whatever, she doesn't tell him what they look like or anything. He doesn't know that they're rock people. So there's the obvious and kind of painful. Like, I think anybody that ever thought of doing a Legend of Zelda movie or thought about how it would be done probably envisioned this scene happening. So it's really not very original at all, but okay, it works. Him leaning up against a rock, or sitting on a rock. And of course you find out it's Goron, and that's your introduction to them and what they look like. Although, when you look at the Gorons, actually, if you've seen, like, the official art for Ocarina of Time and that sort of thing, it's kind of hard to visualize, I guess, what they're made out of. Like, not even in Twilight Princess, which is which there's some in Wind Waker too, but that's even more hyper-stylized. Twilight Princess wasn't that hyper-stylized. It was supposed to look more realistic, and you can't tell what, like, the Gorons are made of, I guess. So, the way I figured it was, I was like, okay, imagine the Gorons are, I guess, really muscular. They're not made of pure rock. They have skin. They're a humanoid race. Have you seen pictures of, like, extreme bodybuilders? Like, extreme bodybuilders that have veins popping, just sweat glisten, the whole nasty mess. Okay, look at their skin. Like, look at how it looks like the skin on a football or something. And that's kind of what I figured the Gorons are made of. They have skin like every other creature out there. It's probably it's hardened and it's dark because of where they live. And obviously their face and eyes and other parts of them is a little bit more, animal-like or, weird looking. But I figured as far as, like, texturizing their skin and what they're supposed to look like, that they look like huge, freakish bodybuilders that just happen to have, like, parts of rocks on them and more, I almost said fish, but that's the Zoras. But, I don't know, turtle-like heads. Turtle, that's a good word for it. Like kappas or something, I don't know. But yeah, as far as is there also their civilization, I always wondered where the light source is coming from in this room. Like, I don't know, it's not open at the top, is it? I don't think it is. So, in order to give more light to their little civilization, because they're not like a dark, scary underground people. They're open and friendly, so their entire civilization should be open and friendly, even though it's inside of a mountain. So there's lots of holes in the walls where the light comes spilling in, and it's just a huge, like echoey, loud cavern, and it's, there's lots of Gorons running around, and it's sort of like a big party, and that's what Link gets invited to, is not like at a big extravagant party, because if you recall, at this point there's a famine. There's like a bomb flower famine at the time. And so they're just having like a banquet with one of the families is having one or something, and he gets invited because they think he doesn't really have anywhere else to go, and they're just a very friendly, open people. So he's hanging out with this family, and they're all eating, and of course there's another joke here that of course Link is very hungry, and they eat rocks, so he's not getting any food. They just, examines all, or just kind of watches as they eat all these many different types of rocks. And so he has to go see Daryunia, and he asks about that, and they're like, oh, well, he probably, can't see Daryunia, and of course he has to ask why. But before I get further into that, I guess I should mention this scene. Actually, we're currently in the Kokiri Woods right now. And to make a long story short, the TLDR version of this is none of this shit happens in the screenplay. He doesn't go back and see Saria and learn the song or whatever, because first of all, there's not really any point to that scene. And second of all, it actually, I think, wouldn't be good for the story because, he had this big emotional goodbye with Saria, right? If he goes back and sees her before the 7 years passes, I think that kills a lot of the suspense and the tension around her character. But now in the screenplay we do see her again, but Link doesn't hang out with her and go to the Sacred Forest Meadow or whatever. He learns about the Sacred Forest Meadow other ways. There's Sheik for that. Sheik plays a huge role in the story because I'm very unoriginal and I'm a huge Sheik fangirl, so yeah. Okay, let me try to cover for that statement slightly. Sheik is a cool character. Come on, you want to do a lot with the character. It actually has a really, really small role in the game. Some people have pointed out, I think. It's like, man, Sheik has such a huge fan base. He doesn't do a damn thing. He just shows up and, occasionally talks to you. And I think that's in order to keep the secret, because it's way too easy to guess. But Sheik has a rather large role in my fictional version of the story. But, there you go. Funny I said fictional. The whole thing's fictional. Who am I kidding? But getting back to the topic at hand, which is not the second movie, it's this first one. He doesn't go back and see Saria, but we see her again. Because in movies, you need to have a B plot or even a C plot. If it's like a smaller scale thing, like a romantic comedy or... Yeah, a romantic comedy is fine. It's enough example. I don't have to think of another one. You usually only have a B plot. You don't have a C or a D plot. But a fantasy or a thriller or something like that, you usually have to have a C and a D plot. Something that you can cut away to, like another concurrent driving force that you can cut away to from the main character. Like, can you imagine a Zelda movie where it just follows Link the whole time? You don't have scenes with other characters. I guess it would be cool, like Lord of the Rings, but, I guess it would be cool if it was done perfectly, but still, in order to make the world feel more expansive, you have to cut to what the other characters are doing. Like in Lord of the Rings, you have lots of scenes that aren't just Frodo and Sam, especially after the Fellowship breaks up, but, whatever, I'm being tangential. So you see Saria and Mito again, closer to the end when Ganondorf is beginning to, there's a lot of scenes with Ganondorf, by the way. He's not as much of an enigma in the first, little bit, I guess. Because I wanted to build up his relationship with the king and why he trusts him or whatever and what he's been up to. Like, for instance, and now it comes full circle, Ganondorf going to the mountain and screwing up the Dodongo's cavern and making things difficult for the Gorons. You notice that in the game, they never specify where the famine comes from, the bombflower famine. Now, the jewel was, missing because Daryunia takes it because he's being a pain in the ass, I suppose. But, the bombflower famine, I guess, is just because of Ganondorf's magic, and then all the Dodongos that appear in the cavern is also because of Ganondorf's magic. Well, it's kind of vague, so basically the way that I wrote it is that, and here this is completely changing the anatomy of, the Dodongos and how you're supposed to defeat them, but I don't think anybody cares that much. Dodongos, in my version, in the screenplay, actually eat bombflowers, so, they feast on them. And I know you're thinking, well, wouldn't that make them explode? Well, I'm getting to that. But, so, in my version, what Ganondorf did was, when he was meeting with Daryunia about, borrowing the stone or using it, in some sort of peace offering to the king to use the Triforce or whatever, and Daryunia is like, fuck no. And so he says, alright, and he, basically opens up he basically just uses his magic to blast open a part of the cavern that had been closed off. The Gorons use the cavern as a forge to build bombs, which they sell. That's how the Gorons make their livelihood, is they sell bombs and they forge weapons. They're, as I think many people pointed out, if this were a Lord of the Rings like universe, the Gorons are the dwarves. So they forge things. But the reason I mention this is that bombs are different from bomb flowers, I guess you could say. Like, they use bomb flowers in order to... Bomb flowers can explode. If you kick them over, they blow up. But, like, the way that, I wrote in the screenplay, they look really different from bombs. They look like something that could grow out of the ground, I guess, instead of just being... This is in 64 graphics, so they're limited, but instead of looking like actual bombs grew out of the ground. So they have to, temper them, and they have to do different things to them, and put the powder in, these little explosive shells or whatever, and sell them as bombs. And that's what they did in the forge. But by themselves, if you, the Dodongos know how to eat them, right off the vine so they don't, blow up. And then they have extremely powerful digestive juices that will, just sedate them or whatever. And then, basically... Long story short, TLDR, the Dongos eat bomb flowers, and they're perfectly okay with that. So the bomb flower shortage is caused by him blowing open this, part of the cavern where all the Dongos lived, and they spill out. And even if the Gorons could herd up a significant portion of them to, keep them from being like a huge health hazard or whatever, and attacking the other Gorons, there's enough that got loose and that are hiding in the cavern that are eating up the bomb flowers, and they're, I guess the reason I wrote this in, when I look back at it, I was kind of amused by it because I think I wrote it during a time of severe drought on our farm. As I've mentioned a couple times, I'm a farmer's daughter, so I think I wrote it when it was a really, really bad farm year, and not only for Dad's bigger farm, but our little garden in the backyard, and the melons and stuff like that we grow, the cantaloupe, were already not doing too well, and then the deer came by and ate them. I'm dead serious. Did you know deer love cantaloupe? They'll come into your garden and they'll stomp on the cantaloupe and they'll break it open and they'll eat it. And yeah, they're very smart critters. That's why we hunt them sometimes, because there's too many of them in Kentucky. So yeah, I don't know if that's where it came from, but I guess I just figured it's okay, well, if they have a famine, it's because some, annoying creature is eating all their food. And that brings us to Daryunia again, which you've seen here. I've quelled the savage beast by playing him a jig that Saria taught me. But, like I said, he doesn't go back to see Saria, so this is just a song that he knows, and it's not anything specific. But while he's at that dinner, they're like, well, do you know how to play that thing, or whatever. He entertains them, and then they say they think they can get him an audience with King Daryunia if they pretend that he's the entertainment or something like that, and that they're, I forgot what the occasion was, because I didn't write it down. It's just in this outline, and the outline is not as specific as I should have made it when I first wrote it, so I don't know what occasion this was that they were going to get him in to see Daryunia. I don't know if I just wrote it that he has, entertainers come in on a regular basis. That might be because he's so stressed out, I guess. Maybe that was it, I don't know. Obviously, if I go back and actually write the script part of this, then that would explain a lot. And I'll probably, think real hard about it and actually make it make sense then. But basically, they pretend that he's an entertainer instead of trying to pass him off as a messenger from the king, because the implication is that he's beat the shit out of messengers that have come in the past after Ganondorf, because Ganondorf is an emissary, remember? So he was the king's representative, and I don't want to be, they don't want to say that I'm the king's representative, or they're afraid that, they're on loan terms with the king right now. The Daryunia has a policy, which he actually says this in the game, you may have noticed, of the Gorons help the Gorons, and if you're not a Goron, then you can't understand our culture. So yeah, they sneak him in and have him entertain the king, and then but the mistake that Link makes when he's entertaining Daryunia is he's trying to think of stuff to play, and he mistakenly plays the royal, thing that the I guess it's the Zelda's Lullaby. Yeah, okay. He plays that, which is also say that is one song that he learns in the movie as traditionally as he learns it in the game. During that whole scene that I